What's up, everybody? It's Quentin from Hunters of Light. Today, we are going to be talking about copyright and the legal issues for photographers, etc. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. I've had skirmishes with specifically wedding venues regarding taking images, deep etching or retouching the logo or the watermark off of it. I won't mention the name of the one that's on the border of Botswana, but you know who you are. So Yolandi's going to take us through, the parameters, I suppose. And it's impossible in the time that we've got to, go through everything and get into fine detail. But I think what it will do is it'll give us a broad perspective of where we stand. And then obviously whatever questions come up during the discussion, please feel free to type them in and I'll pass them on. If there are questions that we can answer, we will. But if it's a bigger question, then I reckon what we need to do is we'll just put you and Yolandi together and see if we can get a bit more in-depth answers after the chat. So Yolandi, thanks very much for coming through today and taking the time. Yolandi's from Novate Legal. I met her at a BNI chapter, we've had loads of chats on intellectual property and copyright and that sort of thing. And I just thought it'd be fantastic to get her on board and have a bit of a chat and see where we are. So Yolandi, I'm going to hand it over to you. And but first off, so I know what photographers are doing during lockdown. Nothing. What is the legal fraternity doing at the moment? I'm assuming that in a fair amount of cases it would be an essential service, but maybe give us a bit of background.
Yes, Quentin, thank you for having me. My first live streaming ever, so that is exciting. So we can top that onto what lawyers do during lockdown. And for the other matters, obviously drafting of contracts and all the rest, work needs to go on. We're very passionate about creating opportunities for clients and for businesses. And through that, the survival during this time, we've been helping a great bit with, if it's negotiating with lessors or insurance policies review and all the rest, HR regulations. So we've been kept quite busy, pushing 16-hour workdays, and
down from 21-hour workdays?
Yeah, so actually we're kind of on our holiday.
You're on holiday.
But working from home and very exciting times. We assisted, actually she's a business coach launching, and a previous lawyer launching lawyers working from home website, which is specifically focused on bringing better and quality and more affordable services to the public. So we're very excited about that. So we also part in these type of initiatives like the Hunters for Light. I think it's a brilliant idea, even though we miss you as president at BNI. Yes, so we're keeping busy, taking instructions, 3 to 4 Zoom meetings per day, and pushing forward, hoping to help South Africa with our legal skills.
Absolutely. And I suppose the one thing that, well, in fact, it's a double-edged sword for you guys. So if you're having a Zoom meeting, it keeps it, start and finish. You know exactly how much it is. You can't travel time and all those sorts of things. So I suppose it makes it easier because you don't have to travel, all over the place. But B, you can't charge for the time spent on the client. So I suppose it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, hey?
Yes. Well, fortunately, we feel strongly about billing clients on a fixed fee basis. So per ad hoc projects or per month, depending on the work we're conducting. So for us, it gives us more of an opportunity to this cost saving of having infrastructure like expensive leases and all that. We give that cost saving over to the clients. So I think it's changing the legal profession, and about 2 weeks ago, the first on Zoom, there was a first conviction in one of the African countries for the death sentence. So that was a first. When I read about it, I was like, okay, that's a first.
Wow.
So it's changing the way the world does business, and we're excited about it. I think it's something we need to embrace. I also find that at some of our clients, that they actually, some of the KPIs they were looking to do over 2 to 3 years, they were pushed to do now, like online trading, getting the website terms and conditions in place and all the rest. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also really important. And I for the life of me, I can't remember if we're going to cover that today, you know, the privacy policy and terms and conditions and that sort of thing. Because
yes, we will.
A lot of people, you know, have website will travel, but you know, things like the privacy policy, the disclaimer, terms of use, etc. It's so important, because if something goes wrong, you've got no cover, and it's fine until something goes wrong. But you know, when it does, then people go, oh, but it's the same with insurance. If you don't insure your gear and something goes wrong, you only need that insurance when something goes wrong. And when you don't have it, well, you know, that's just the way it is. So, but anyway, I'm not gonna steal your thunder. I'm going to hand over to you and ask questions as they come up on the group. If I'm kind of looking down like this, it's because I'm answering a question, etc. I'm not ignoring you. So
no problem.
Over to you.
Good. Okay. So for today, I think it's important that we outline our photographers' rights in terms of copyright, privacy laws, and trespassing, and then we'll jump straight into the likes of your website terms and conditions, how you can proactively and unfortunately reactively protect your rights as a photographer and the people that you deal with. So copyright forms part of the big four intellectual property rights in South Africa. The one is trademarks, so that's typically your brand protection. Then we've got copyright, which is divided in different kinds of work, such as literary, artistic, computer program, and the likes. Then we've got patent, which is your patent rights. That's novel within the whole world. And design, and that's in your literal sense, as you can think of a normal design. Then copyright cannot be registered in South Africa except for cinematographic films, and it subsists automatically when it's brought down to material form. It's original, and on that we need to know that the originality doesn't have the extensive test like a patent, which needs to be novel in the whole world. So for instance, with your physical manifestation as well, you can't protect an idea. It needs to be brought down into the physical form. So the person, in terms of photography, most of the rights within the Copyright Act for photos and images are protected under artistic rights. However, there is one exclusion in the Copyright Act which differs, where there's an exception where copyright in photos and images are valid for 50 years from the date the image is made public or the first date of publication. So I know there is a lot of confusion in your industry and in terms of the science of photography. How long is it valid for? People think it's 50 years from the author dying, but those are one of the exclusions where it's not seen as artistic work in that sense, but it's actually your 50 years from your first publishing or making it public to your work public to the public. Then the creators, so I'm sure you can recall the monkey pressing the button for the taking the photograph. So it's not necessarily the person pressing the button, but actually the labor and effort that went into the styling, the lighting, the set, the composition, so the artistic input into that. Then where South Africa copyright law differs quite a bit from some of the other countries is in terms of commissioned photographs. So the general rule is that the author is the owner. However, we've got exceptions in our copyright law, which states that if somebody, one is permanent employment, And 2 is the commissioning of artistic works and certain artistic works like photos that the owner would be the client actually. So we'll get to how to manage that and the expectation of that, but the freelancers generally, they don't own the right in terms of their work, and that can be negotiated through verbal or written agreement between the parties. So you can imagine sometimes if you take a photo at a wedding, you still want to use that photo on your website going forward. Actually, you're not the owner. So we need to be careful of that, and there are ways of managing that. And I also had this discussion with you in terms of the terms and conditions and the wording as such, which we'll get to in a while as well. So from there, we can move on to, but then how do I go about all of these things? First, we can start off by your copyright logo, which serves 2 main purposes. It's a notice and a reminder that you've got rights in that image. And then secondly, if they need to contact you and they want to use that image, they know where they can find you. So the example of the copyright logo and notice is typically follows the example of the copyright logo, the owner's name. So if you are the owner, that would be your name. Unless you're doing it under a company, then the company's name would be the year it was first published or made public, and then which rights are you reserving? All of the rights? Are you succeeding some of the rights in terms of commercial use or publication or education or all the rest? So if we had to use Novate as an example, we would say the copyright logo, Novate Legal 2020, or if our website was created earlier, but we're still adapting it, it would just indicate 2015 to 2020 and all rights reserved. So that's an example of that notice with the copyright logo.
So that, sorry to interrupt there. So that notice, and we'll take it from a photograph point of view. That notice would have to be displayed on the photograph, be it bottom left, bottom right, whatever. It would have to be displayed on the actual photograph. Or
yes, we would.
Because the other way that you can obviously do it is embedded into the photo in in the EXIF tags, etc., where you can specify keywords and ownership and links to the copyright URL, etc.
Yes, exactly. So while we're on that, it was actually as part of my list to discuss under others. So we know about the agreements and detail of the agreements we'll get to, and the website use, social media use, how to proactively protect yourself in that instance, and just get to a middle ground with anybody that might start using your image. So some of the other ones that I see are mostly used in your industry is if you have a website, you only allow access with people that sign up. So most of your quality images, you've got certain subscribers. So you control who has access to that image. And then it's much easier later if you had to enter into copyright infringement proceedings or send a letter of demand or a warning or demand reasonable royalties. You know exactly where they got it from and how they accessed your images. So that's a matter of control and tracking who's got access. Then there are 2 that can use in combination. One is watermarks. So obviously, like you will have on your photo at the bottom right, not disturbing the image, but you can see there is a watermark of the author or the owner of the specific image. Then we also have, which I saw recently, the barcoding, which one of the popular service providers is Digimac. So it's visible barcoding for digital photos. And I see that's roughly, the packages range from $119 for 2,000 photographs, where it's, which I like about, it's almost like a fingerprint for each photo. So it would be very difficult to argue ownership from anybody that infringed on that photo. So when I talk about infringement, also people see that as theft of image. So that's loosely the common wording that's used in public.
Okay.
Then we also get the actually locating, doing a search on your specific images that you regard as highest value or quality or whatever the case may be through your Google Images search. So those are a couple of the proactive ways to protect your image.
Yeah, because you know, I also know of options where, you know, you get to I suppose register your images, and you know, if there is an infringement, they will pick it up and notify you. I think the biggest problem is specifically for things like people like wedding photographers, where, you know, you may have thousands of images that have been you know, on your website, on Facebook, etc., or you know, the client may have uploaded, and I think that's one of the big areas where people it's impossible to, you know, put whether it's $1 or you know, 50 US cents or whatever it is per image, because, you know, you'd pretty much be broke. So I think for the most part, people are taking the approach of putting a watermark on, and the balance between making it visible and you know, and not wanting to detract too much from the image. But there aren't really too many other sort of ways around that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a very difficult industry, and I mean, just the efforts that go into a single photo. I read about some of the more adventurous photographers who wait a year to get a perfect image in nature. So, and people will just then steal the image and use it. So it's crazy and very difficult. There are proactive means, and I think as you escalate into becoming more famous in Afrikaans, we've got to say, die hoogste bome kry die meeste wind, which you then have to start enforcing more of these proactive options that's available.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is one of those things, you know, as you get more well-known, people want to use your images, and obviously the quality of them is that much better. You know, but I think it's incredibly unfortunate where, you know, people will say, well, I found it on Google, so you know, I must be able to use it. But I think the big issues come in where there's a flagrant disregard, and watermarks are retouched, and it's, you know, it's fairly simple to do it. It's not really hard. But you know, in cases like that, what I found anyway is that you know, they'll go through that process, and then when you you know, send a legal letter through, the response is pretty much, well, take me to court. And what you have in that situation is you need to decide whether you want to spend 100,000 Rand on getting 10,000 Rand back for the images that have been stolen.
Exactly.
You know, and unfortunately there, it's you know, deeper pockets are going to win every day. You know, because potentially you are going to get saddled with the costs as well. So you'll pay your costs and their costs. So it's, and that's the sort of the scary part about it, because you know, as an individual, you have very little wiggle room as far as where you can go. And it's, I almost wish that we could, and I mean, hopefully one day we can become, as a photography community, such that we have systems in place where the sort of organization, you know, let's say we're all members, and everyone's a member, and those members can then, you know, they contribute on an annual basis, and if something comes up, it comes out of the kitty, and you have legal might that you can take on these guys, because sometimes it's small, you know, it's, you know, whether it's a wedding venue or whatever, but then other times you get sportswear you know, companies in other countries that will take an image, and well, first of all, it's jurisdiction, there's issues there, but you know, at the end of the day, you really haven't got a leg to stand on, other than to say, listen, it's a problem, here's an invoice, et cetera, but without the sort of the funds to back it, I think it's the losing battle from the start.
No, definitely. And I noted preparing for this Q&A that it's so strange that you guys don't have you've got your professional body, your society, but I mean, if you've got something like a SAMPRA and get together and you know, power of numbers, I think that would really impact your industry in South Africa. And that, as you said, if you pull together with a small membership fee, at least you've got the protection between each other as members can be held accountable, and the public. So that is, I was wondering why isn't there something like this? Can't we start a Hunters of Light body to...
Well, you know, the crazy thing is, there's been a succession of, and I'm going to get into trouble no matter what I say. There's been a succession of people who have tried to form industry associations, etc., with varying levels of success. And I don't really understand the reason why. You know, people have said to me that it's like herding cats. There's no way that you're going to get people to agree on anything, or etc. But I think we need to take an honest look at each other or ourselves in the mirror and say, listen, just grow up. If you want to be taken seriously, you need to have a body that has got your well-being and best interests at heart, and not just about, well, we've got a body and here's a badge and or whatever, because that's nonsense. That's a waste of time. You know, it needs to be a situation where we actually know, you know, what fees we should be charging, and that's something that that's another discussion that we're having. You know, are you protected? What about copyrights? Who's talking to government about our needs, etc. And I don't know what the situation is, because I'm not involved in any of that. I don't like the politics of it, but there's a lot of players, and they all seem to be pulling in different directions. You know, I had a very brief discussion with one of the associations, and trying to get them on board and say, let's have a chat about where we are in the industry. And yeah, not so much. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important that, I mean, you know, whether whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but I definitely think that some form of collective needs to be there. It shouldn't be about you know, egos, and you know, another problem that we have. It shouldn't be about egos. It should be about benefiting the industry and the people of the industry and the people that work in the industry. So, and I mean, even in a situation like this, so we've got photographers that haven't been able to work. I mean, I've had emails from both photographers and people in the video production, film production industry saying, listen, I haven't worked for a month and a half. I've got no money. Please, have you got, you know, even if you just give me a couple of bucks. And I mean, I mean, I've got goosebumps just thinking about it now. It's horrendous. But
horrible.
If we had some form of society or collective or whatever it is, that if you're a paid up member, you know, you get something back. I don't know. But I definitely think that we have to start looking at that. And one of the elements is a legal component where if a client doesn't pay you, or you know, they use images, you know, without following the licensing agreement, etc., that we can tackle them. You know, and but anyway, that's it's another discussion. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get into hot water with someone with, you know, issues. But
just call me.
Yeah, there we go. But I think, you know, maybe it's something that we need to talk about. And if you guys are you know, in a position to start some discussions and see where we go, because I do think that it also should be made up of maybe a range of legal firms. So onus is not just on one company. So, you know, we have representatives from Workmen's and you know, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I know that Jurgens Becker Attorneys was doing some work with a South African photographer and Madiba's image. And I'm not sure exactly what the outcome of that was, but you know, I think the amount of money that was at stake was huge. But you know, I think if there's and I don't know, maybe I don't want to say this, but maybe like a pro bono person from 20 law firms, you know, might go a long way to making it work. I don't know. I think it's something that maybe we need to to discuss. So
Yeah, if you have a network to back you.
Comments on. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a network in line with that, and I mean, there are so many specialized lawyers working from home now that can contribute towards this. And I mean, there's always a way to set up a costing model later once this body is up and ready to succeed. I mean, to run as a non-executive director of the body, depending on which format you take. But I mean, it's definitely something that you guys who is passionate and in the industry need to have a look. South Africa is full of entrepreneurs in your industry that's dying for something like this to happen. So I can't see, and if you don't fit in, then you don't join the society. Just one of those, I almost said a very ugly word, if you don't fit in, but
yeah, no,
anyway.
I think I know what that word was. But so I've sidetracked you horribly here. Please continue.
Okay, no. These are the issues that people need to keep in mind. And even like, for instance, you have the Franchising Association where their members automatically have access to their databases. They have access to their Consumer Protection Act agreements and all the rest. So if you guys can have something like that, then you can actually have a look at what exactly needs to be in my website terms of use. What exactly is in my subscriber terms and conditions, and how do I control it? And most importantly, I think one of your big issues that you mentioned today is the enforceability of it. Yeah. So De Beers attorneys are recently read up that if they had to cost an average of a copyright infringement matter, it would be somewhere between 150 and 300,000 Rand. So it is definitely a problem and something we need to work on. And it doesn't help that our legislation is very slow to adapt to the digital age. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, if there was again this body, but that clients knew that if they overstepped the mark, there was going to be some form of repercussion. And all you really need is one highly publicized
precedent.
Yeah. And then, you know, you've got it. But you were saying something else now as well, which I think is so important. If we had the privacy, the terms, contracts, etc., if there was a pack that was customized for South African law, that was available, and you kind of work on economies of scale. So you put it together, you make sure that it's watertight, as well as watertight as it can be, and then you assume that there will be 500 photographers that will go for it, and then you say, well, this is what it'll be per download, etc. Yes. And I think then at least what you've done is you've given everyone the tools to be in a position to say, hold on a second, here's my contract. And here's what happens if you don't. But again, a second point to that is that a lot of photographers don't have contracts. You know, so after the fact, it's like, oh, but they don't want to pay me on time, and you say, well, what does it say in your contract? And they go, well, I don't have a contract. So there's that issue as well. So there's a lot of issues, and I think it's definitely, maybe what we should actually do is schedule a group discussion where we have 4 or 5 people involved from a whole lot of different parts of this situation, where you've got photographers who have been through the process and have a more in-depth, specific to the photography side of things, knowledge, people like yourselves, etc. And maybe we can just discuss all of this again in the same format, where it's a Zoom meeting and streamed. And then, you know, we'll kind of see where it goes. But I think the biggest problem, as the guys are mentioning on the chats here, is it seems to be almost impossible to bring everyone together and work together. But yeah, let's not get negative. Carry on.
Yeah, I believe where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, there's so many lawyers in our industry, for instance, that do not see eye to eye, and there's a lot of pride and a lot of emotions that's involved. And it's just at the end of the day, when this virus hits our country, beautiful things like this lawyers working from home platform started to arrive. And you realize the big amount of network and individuals out there that is on the same page and batch. So I really do believe where there's a will, there's a way. And even if your close group starts this and do the study in terms of where did we go wrong in the past, how can we rectify that? So it is a struggle, and but I believe it would be worth it, and it would leave a legacy to future people in your industry.
Absolutely. Chris Van Sale is just saying that, he likes the idea of having that standard pack. Maybe if I can, put that to you to give some thought on. If you had to put together a pack for, the covering legal requirements, both on a website, contractually, and even from a licensing point of view. I don't know what that will entail, but maybe if you can give a bit of thought to that, and then we can revert back down the line and see where we go. And then obviously what we need to do is we need to assume a certain number of photographers will take up the offer. And then we can say, well, so your costs will be covered because there will be, and again, I'll use the number 500 photographers who will take part in that. And maybe what we can do is we can try and build up some sort of commitment beforehand to getting that done. But I just think we should just try and see where we can form some form of stability and draw a line in the sand. So right, here we go. If you want to be covered and you want to take your business seriously, then this is the minimum that you need. You can't just go around and say, oh, but no one told me, or whatever. It's we got to take ourselves and our industry seriously. Otherwise, no one will.
Yeah, and that's exactly also, while you were speaking, I was thinking about protecting your baby, your company, your even if you're a sole proper or actual registered company. It also goes further than just your normal, okay, I need these and T's and C's with my client. I need these T's and C's where I work with another photographer. I need whatever the case may be. But it also depends on how you holistically take the approach to your business. Are you protected if anything else happens? Because if something bigger happens, not necessarily the theft of your image, something else, I'm not properly protected, because otherwise that storm can completely shake that boat. So it's a holistic approach. And then, yes, I do agree with one of the audience members which said, okay, but give me a package on if I have this, at least I'm managing my risk. But on the other hand, it's also a conversation on what type of business owner am I? Am I very risky, but I can still manage it? I mean, with high risk, high reward? Or do I just want to keep it small, manage it? I don't care too much about the rest. So that is an aspect, I think, that needs inner reflection, and then taking it from there and standing up and say, these few people in the industry, we want to take our business to the next level. There are so many opportunities. We can go global in certain things. This is what we need in our holistic approach on running a photography business is, taking risks, but managing those risks.
Absolutely. And I mean, the one question that I would have, and maybe, whoever's watching this now, just add it in the comments, is public liability insurance. How many people have it? What if you are at a wedding, a client knocks over, or one of the guests knocks over your stand with your light on it, it hits an old man, he has to go into hospital, etc. Are you covered? Do you even have that insurance? Have you even thought about it? And it's things like that, where you don't think about it until it happens. And then it's like, well, okay, I'm being sued for 5 million rand. What am I going to do? Well, there's nothing you can do unless you've got, some form of insurance for that sort of thing, But yes, I agree. It's a big picture, and you need to look at it. Are you operating the business as a business, or do you just want to take cool pictures? Because you can do both. It really is just a case of saying, well, I want to make sure that all my ducks are in a row. And so that when I do take that picture that Microsoft wants to put, or Apple wants, that Apple wants to put on their desktop screensaver, and they've just taken it and they're going to screw you, well, what you're going to do? You know what I mean?
And you
yeah,
don't
so,
want to get stuck in the David and Goliath battle, because as you say, that also comes with a whole list of
yeah.
different stuff. But I think there's definitely ways and means around it. And the more of you guys pull together, I think the quicker and easier it will become.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so from a copyright point of view, that is important. And what I've listed here as to proactively protect, obviously through your agreements and notices and your holistic approach to enterprise risk management, and your reactive approach. If you send a letter of demand, will you actually go through with going to court if they don't pay? You know, do you have the sufficient negotiation skills to get reasonable royalty for that image that's being used? Is your platform set up properly in terms of access and subscriptions and their T's and C's? So a lot of public people, or the public, do not want to necessarily be entangled with a 18-page document and saying, okay, if you want to do business with me as a photographer, this is what you need. But just getting it into a proper, I never want to say one-pager, but you know, a short form version, and then incorporate with it, can eventually be digitized and automated. If there's a model release needed because you're going to use that figure for commercial use, is there certain consents if you're using children for a specific shoot? You know, incorporating all of that, and digitally going forward, I think it would be made easier by just a click of a button to say, okay, when I click this button, I know this specific terms and conditions are applicable to me. And then we talked about the watermark earlier. We talked about the acts controlling the access to your images. And then obviously, if you find that somebody has infringed, you can, and it's on their website, you can go have a look and see, obviously, on the contact us page. And if you don't come right there, you can go see on the who is domain registration. So there's a couple of things that you can explore, but it's just yeah, within what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think the minimum that you can do is, as you say, go in and look at the who's detail and see who's hosting that website, and send them a takedown notice. That's not going to cost you anything, because it's something that the hosting company doesn't want to get involved in, because then they'll obviously
they'll expose themselves. Yeah,
exactly. So at the very least, do know how to do that, and do that, and then contact the guys and say, listen, this is what's happened, here's your invoice, because the bare minimum is that they'll
thank you for coming, here's your invoice.
That's right. The bare minimum, you'll get some money out of it, maybe, or they'll just ignore you. But you may panic them into, oh, okay, cool, we're so sorry. Here's the, where can we make the payment? But that sort of thing, the takedown notice, etc. At least you've got some options open to you before you go into spending the big money.
Yeah, exactly. And we find it most of the times they are open to negotiation, saying, okay, ignorance is not bliss in this instance, because when you're stealing an image, doesn't matter if you say, sorry, I don't know, but still having someone to say and tap you on the finger and say, don't do that again, and then you can monitor, because you'll soon realize that you get your repeat offenders, and then it becomes easier to control and enforce.
Absolutely, yeah, and those, if there's a body with a legal credibility that's gonna do the slapping of the wrist, that really will just make people think about it, before it actually does happen again.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in certain instances, there are, within the copyright laws, there are imprisonments that can happen. So, it's just enforcing those laws that is available to the photographers, and to what extent. So I definitely think, and I mean, I don't want to be part of a body that says, you know, don't do this, don't do that, don't run your company like this, don't be like this. You guys are very creative, and that needs to be expressed. So it should rather be a proactive body and embracing protection of photographers and how they impact South Africa, because always we find where there's a purpose and a way, it's easier to protect. So if you, for instance, say, I don't know if you heard about the Hold Still initiative by Kate Middleton.
No, I'm showing up my ignorance now.
No, no, she's during the COVID period, she's actually saying, let's compile a gallery of how the country came together in the UK, how the country came together during this time. And for all kinds of photographers are included in that. And yeah, I've got a quotation here from the Independent UK online paper, which said, there are sad images of human tragedy, but also how people come together, like in, and then I thought about Hunters with Light, like, you know, that absolute coming together. So it's like, now that's something actually South Africa needs to focus on, because you see this contrast between the inhumane stuff that's happening, but also how people are helping and how first aid responders, and to capturing a photo that would be for the history books. So that's why she started this Hold Still campaign, which is was quite interesting for me.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so many, I don't know what you'd call it. You know, yeah, I don't know. It's the same sort of thing where you look at these images and you actually have no words. You know, where you have cities that have got not a single person in them. You know, you have you know, images that are in hospitals, etc., where you look at it and you go, that just cannot be real. You know, I think there's a lot of coverage out there and initiatives that are just showing how big this is. You know, and it's amazing how those images are getting around. But then, you know, at the same time, just bringing it back to, you know, how many of those images are being used by the press agencies. And, you know, someone takes an image and it goes around the world and you know, eventually no one knows who took the photo, but all the agencies.
Yeah, there's no recognition even.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think an overall thing is that as photographers, we just want to take pictures, you know, we want to create stuff. We don't really want to think about contracts and legal fees and, you know, wow, this guy's taken my image and what am I going to do about it? You know, so I think that, you know, if we can get to a point of saying, well, here's the starter pack, you know,
yes.
And you've got your basic things in place, and if there's an issue, you then you know, go to your association website and you fill it in and you say, you drop down, this is the problem, this is the person, this is where it's done, here are screen grabs of the infringement, submit. That goes into the pool of lawyers that you know, and whoever picks it up gets it and runs with it, and you know, because you're a paid up member, you know, you'll get some form of coverage, even if it is just the initial you know, demand letter that gets sent out. You know, I think that kind of thing will really just make a lot of us a little, you know, sleep a little easier at night. You know, yeah,
and it will show, it will, as I said, normally when there is punishment involved, people are more reluctant, and unfortunately that's human nature. So getting something like that, I think it's really important for you guys to consider. And the more you pull together and the more people are participate in this, you know, your costing in terms of membership fees or the package, your intro copyright package would be so much less, because you're dividing that cost between everybody.
Well, absolutely, yeah. You know, and again, I know that we've discussed, you know, putting a package together like that. And I mean, you know, if you, and again, it really all just depends on how many people get involved. I know that on the Hunters of Light, the group, we have just under 2,500 members. a lot of those are not, professional photographers or semi-professional photographers. They might be hobbyists, etc. So, it's not really going to be a case of, 2,500 people joining up. But I mean, I can certainly see 500, maybe even 1,000 without too much effort. And that definitely will make that sort of the cost per item much more affordable. But again, it's a bigger picture, as you're saying, about if there's membership fees that are charged, you then have a collective of legal minds that you can tap into without an additional cost each time. Because I know that letter of demand is about $2,500, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So
it really depends on the scenario, but that is typically.
So let's say something happens and you call up your attorney or your lawyer and you say, listen, this is what's happened. He'll say, fantastic, give me the details. Here's your invoice. Whereas if we can make it work like that, you're part of this group. You don't necessarily need to have a fancy badge or a cap or whatever, but you're a member of it. And when there is an issue, you send an email. That initial thing is covered. No one knows what's going to happen when they reply to that, and then that's where you can take it further. And obviously, the legal bits and pieces and admin will need to be taken care of. But I really think that's something that we need to look at.
Yeah, and I think your suggestion of getting conversation going in the parties that want to be involved, then we can set something like that up.
Absolutely.
And the main role players. Yeah. And I mean, it's so diverse. Your industry is so diverse and it's a science, and I don't feel it's always respected as such. So I really think there needs to be disruption in terms of how the public perceive photographers and initiating that respect. Like being a lawyer and being the second oldest profession in the world, I've heard all the lawyer jokes, and people find it difficult to trust lawyers. So we spend a lot of our time and energy on that trust. And maybe in terms of your industry, that disruption is needed from a protect my work, protect my experience and effort I put into this. Having that trust between the public and photographers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things there. The first one is, if you respect yourself, that's the starting point. If you value your work, that's the starting point. Because if you don't, the people are going to take advantage of you. The second one is, what is the oldest profession in the world? No, don't answer that. Moving on swiftly. Let's go quickly.
Yeah. So very interesting discussion, Quentin, and I really think there's so much to be done and learn. And I even seen some of the research material on copyright and photography. It's very less than most of the other copyright laws in South Africa, and even the Copyright Amendment Bill into an act now. They do not focus much on that, and you guys kind of get the back seat under artistic, and then so it's definitely something that can be pushed and be thought of. But I think it is a mind shift change of just me and my photos and what I want to do, and being seen as the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to think of what the other things were. So are you still going to get to the website terms and conditions and things like that? And what is the other one? Section 21, etc. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure what we've gone left, right, up, down. My eyes are just spinning now.
It's a roller coaster.
Absolutely.
No, under the Section 21. So that is your when you commission. Then the client pays, and the client owns the copyright. So what is important there, if you have an agreement, it doesn't need to be complex, with the client, and just stating that in terms of this specific act, you are the owner, and hereby through this commissioning, I actually have certain licenses and rights in terms of the work I'll be doing for you. So then at least, or in terms of the Copyright Act, you can't assign copyrights unless it's in writing. So in that agreement, you can assign the copyright back to yourself. So why is that important? Because when you're the owner, you can do the adaptation, you can do reproduction, you can do modifications, you can do. So I think that's very important to note. Actually, in that image, who is the owner? Author is normally the owner, except under commission work for artistic work, like taking photos, and then saying, when our general T's and C's is that I have a certain license to still use these images I'm doing on your behalf. And if it's something that will be used in advertising or the like, and there's commercial use, that you do have a clause for model release in that agreement as well. So if you typically take your website terms and use, we need to know that that is your agreement with the public. So whoever accesses that website. Now, why I'm saying this is if somebody subscribes, they might have more access or more rights or recourse or whatever the case may be, which is a different set of rules. For just the normal websites and the launch page and that type of thing, there should be, you are going to see images, there are going to be shared images, and so properly regulate your intellectual property, because I say intellectual property, not only copyright, because embedded in certain logos are obviously trademarks. So, and that's not either the website owners, and it remains the property of that person who placed it there. And if you're a member and you subscribe, then you can go into further detail. How are you allowed to use certain images that we make available to you? So regulating things like that, and you can also then include in your clause in your contract as well, your subscriber terms and conditions, that if a dispute arises, it will be settled between the parties. And then if that can't be settled, obviously you'll either go to mediation, arbitration, or court proceedings. And that is something you guys can use, because you don't want to necessarily run to court, but getting a panel together to arbitrate and mediate on those types of disputes. So that you can all govern through having proper website terms and conditions. But as a starter point, I would definitely have a contract in place between other photographers you work with, and then obviously your clients, your SLA. Like I said, it doesn't need to be extensive, just covering yourself as a beginning, and as you grow, those terms and conditions will grow with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the wording is so important. That copyright message that I've got in my contract that I sent you, you know, you were mentioning that, you know, the way that it was not ideal, and that it, you know, should be done in a slightly different way. And I think it's so important, because I mean, I don't know, I look at it and it's all legalese, and the person who put it together for me before, I paid them to do it, and then it should be right, you know. So I suppose that's the thing, you know, if you have got something on your website or even in your contract, you need to make sure that where you got it from is a reliable source, because it may actually just not be worth the paper that it's written on. And in fact, I've got a question here from Reno. He said, Yolandi, for our wedding photographers, how legal and binding is our contract between us and the clients? And does it mean something, or is it just words on paper, as one bride laughed at me and said, that's my contract, means nothing to her? I suppose it depends on how much money you have to enforce it.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a bridezilla, and it's really, I think, is something rather to have than not to have. That's wording. When I heard that now, Raina, I thought about non-disclosure agreements where everybody's like, it's not worth the paper it's written on. But I mean, it is a legal binding contract until you actually enforce it, and you get your panel of attorneys to say, listen, bridezilla, this is my rights, this is the enforceability of my rights, and we need to work together. You don't want to lose the client either. So it's a very fine line between enforcing your rights and keeping the client, but saying, listen, if you want to work with me, I'd appreciate, because why won't they want to sign something like that or see it as enforced? So yeah, that's the normally that comes to mind when people say, no, I'm not going to sign a contract with you. Then I'm like, okay.
It almost, it's one of those things where when someone says that to you, you just want to say, oh, sorry, I'm not the right photographer for you. Because if they don't want to abide by your terms, then you can't abide by their terms. So, then it does work both ways. But I think you mentioned a very, very good point about, the relationship between you and the client. There's, and I know when I shot the weddings, and there were clients that said, I don't want any of the images to be on social media. It's not, we're not those kind of people, etc. If you really want those images on social media, well, then you need to decide whether you want to shoot the wedding or not. But again, that's a decision that you make based on whether you want the work, whether you want a relationship, etc. And I think it's really important. The other thing that comes up often is where you mention to a client the contract, and that's the last you hear of them, because they also don't want to get into that sort of situation. It's almost like it's preferred to be like fast and loose, whereas it's so much simpler to say, here are the items that you're being charged for. This is the cost. This is when you'll get them. There we go. And this is the value that's associated with them. It's so much simpler when you have that list and everyone signed it and agreed to it, because then I can't say, oh no, I'm not giving you 100 images because I don't feel like it. But the contract says you must, so you have to. And the same the other way around. Well, I'm not paying you, the extra for the retouching because I don't feel like it. But it says here you requested it, etc. So, it's important to have those things in place. And again, it just comes back to if you're serious about the business, you need to take it seriously. And as an industry, and I'm talking very generally here. I mean, please don't attack me for saying that. But generally speaking, if we all just kind of say, hold on, there's a contract, you need to sign it, otherwise we don't work together. Then that will just be the standard. It's the way that it is.
And alternatives can be considered, especially some of our clients that's in an industry, a retail industry that is fast and loose in terms of contracting and going your own way. We actually just advise them that you refer to on your invoice that your standard terms and conditions will apply. And by accepting my service or paying me, you agree to that standard terms and conditions. So they're aware there's a contract. Yep. They're aware of all of these things without having to read 18 pages or without having to, when people hear contract, they run away. So, and this is the basis. You can give a short summary. This is the payment terms, this is the package, and this is my rights. I mean, just together on your invoice at the bottom.
Absolutely. And that's, if it's there and they pay, that sort of contract has been entered into. And if they don't feel like going and reading them, well, that's not really your problem as a photographer, because you've provided them a link to them on your website, or you've attached them as a PDF, etc. And they've said, okay, I'm still happy with proceeding. Here we go. And that, again, it's just such a simple way of having that agreement in place. And it's, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but there needs to be this sort of standard level that everyone who's serious about it needs to start operating from. In order for there to be less issues with regards, this one's not paying, that one's not paying, and they want more, they want less, etc.
Yeah, and they'll always push on price and all the rest. So it's rather have that in place. And I mean, I say at the bottom of the invoice, but it needs to be clear that there are terms and conditions when you contract with me. And as long as that's in place, then you can be referred to or request a copy, or it can be online, or whatever the case may be.
And I think that's it's actually while we've been talking now, I've had an idea for and I don't know if Greg Shear is watching this. Greg, I'm going to get hold of you. We need to automate a process. you know, if you have those contracts online, the little checkbox that says I agree to the terms and conditions, the terms are hyperlinked, conditions are hyperlinked, and you have to, you know, go and click on it. There it is, accepted, etc. Then there's no gray area, you know.
Yeah,
it's right there.
That's easier. So in South Africa, we call that click wrap agreement. So that's typically before you can accept terms and conditions. I know you like Apple, so let's use iOS. For example, when there's an upgrade, you first need to tick that before it gives access. So that's
and you need to scroll. They know that you haven't scrolled. You're just going next, next, next. You have to scroll. So if you just be lazy like me and scroll, that's fine. You scrolled. It's your problem.
Yeah. So at least if you've got mechanisms like that in place, it makes it easier to say, okay, in the background, this is how my website and system is run. So this means by the time you click, it's onto you now if you actually read it, understood it, and accept it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And if you can't accept it, don't contract with us.
Exactly, and you know what excites me so much is that this kind of stuff can be put in place. We can have someone who will put together the legal contracts which are housed on this entity. When you fill in the form, it's been checked. It is legally correct. There are your terms and conditions. Check. You've got a digital signature. It's all part of this whole. So all of your contracts essentially are housed on whatever this is. You know, clickyclouds.com. You know, and that's
And then when we get excited and developing that further, you can choose. Okay, I'm clicking on this package. 1,000 Rand for this corporate profile of the shoot with, and then it takes you to add pay, so you can pay debit or EFT or whatever the case may be. So it's as soon as you get that momentum in place, and then we need to remember you've got suppliers' terms and conditions then also to consider.
Absolutely. And even things like if there's a dispute, that's where it happens. And that dispute automatically gets logged with, you know, the attorney or the legal firm or however that structure is. So it all happens. You from start to finish, from contract to, you know, completion, etc. This one is the client's not paying me. You know, that goes into the system as well. And then that process flow can take place. You know, I just think it's such an awesome idea. I don't know why no one's done it. You know.
And even with booking sessions between the photographers on training or whatever the case may be, it can also happen on that platform at the back to say, okay, guys, we're arranging this platform. Are you joining? It's 100 Rand, whatever the case may be. So it's definitely something you can build up to.
Absolutely. And you can also do, you know, fairly regularly. How often, you know, let's check it out. But you can do things like, all right, this month we're having XYZ who's going to be talking about, you know, copyright in this situation, and it's a webinar, whatever it is. So not only do you get legal coverage and protection, you also get education on the legal side of things. That's
and
cool.
I find the more people know about what the terms and conditions actually say, the less problems there are, because they're promising stuff which is not in the contract. So to us, it's very important that you actually understand the content of your contract. So even on the first package of your T's and C's would be important, so you know, okay, this is important. And when we get to click wrap and online agreements, you get the likes of your Electronic Communication and Transaction Act, because you're trading online. So all those type of laws come into play, and that's exciting. I mean, there's always an opportunity to use that law to actually boost what you're offering.
Absolutely. And I'm completely like pumped about this. I think you know, if we can get something like this going, fantastic, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on to what you want to say. Okay. Wow. That was awesome. I think a huge thank you to you. I really appreciate it. I know we've gone over a little bit, so I appreciate your time.
By the hour. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I know.
We don't do that.
checks in the mail,
Yeah.
the post office mail.
Yeah.
I think if anyone who is watching this and is wanting to take part in a like a group discussion that we can do on Zoom on the platform, please mention it. Let's put something together. If let's just see what kind of support that we would have for something like this. I mean, we can bring in the legal side. We can build the the website with process automation, etc., and we can really just make it into something that that works really well. And I'd like to say like a nominal fee, but I suppose what's nominal? But it's not 10,000 rand, etc., because we need to have economies of scale. We need to have 2,000 people, 3,000 photographers, and I mean I'm pretty sure we've got more than that. But let's stop talking about what is the professional body doing for us, and blah, blah, blah. Let's stop talking about that nonsense and actually just say, well, let's do it. I'm certainly happy to commit in whatever way that I can. I know that like for you guys and other lawyers working from home, etc., there's a lot of talent. There's people that have got ideas. Let's do something about it, and see where it goes. So yes, thank you very much. I know you're paying per hour, so you better go.
No, at least we don't.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Quentin, for the opportunity, and I'm excited for the industry, and I really wish you all the best. We'll remain in touch and then take it from.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to get some advice on, their terms and conditions or a contractual issue or whatever, please get hold of Yolandi. In the promo for this were her details, but maybe Yolandi, if you've got time a little bit later, just jump on the discussion. And if there are any questions, you can just answer them. And if it's a bigger discussion, then set up a Zoom meeting with them and take it from there.
No problem. Thank you,
Cool.
Quentin.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Hey.